Hello. Today we're going to talk about shadow work. It is almost a dirty word in the spiritual community, I feel like. And before we delve into that, I want to give a couple of highlights here about me. Hi. My name is Smith Osborne, Very Good Intentions. If you don't follow me here, subscribe, like, and follow me on TikTok. That's where I made my start. Please follow me there as well. I do like to randomly follow people back. Once I get 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, I am going to start giving away free readings, and I'm excited to start doing that. So moving up to 1,000 subscribers. Okay. Also, I'm building a tiny house. I wanted to tell you about, I'm trying to tell you guys like little tidbits about me so you just don't think I'm just some random crazy lady who records in her car. I'm building a tiny home in the middle of the Kentucky wilderness, which is strange, like why Kentucky? I was born and raised here. And I came back here, moved back here from Arizona, and I just love Kentucky. It's my home. And not the people, the place. So let's make it very clear. Some of the people are very nice. But in large groups, and it's not my favorite thing. All right, so let's move on to what's shadow work. So shadow work is what we do when there is something that is bothering us, triggering us. It's a pet peeve. We look at the situation. All right. So I'm going to give you a situation. I'm making something up. Okay. So I get in an argument with my friend Betty. Okay. And here's why it happened. So Betty runs up to me and grabs a book out of my hand while I'm reading it. And Betty's joking, but I don't like it when people snatch things out of my hand. So I'm like, hey, don't like that. And she's like, oh, I'm just kidding. Well, that really just kind of ticked me off, and it just kind of sat with me. And I'm like, why did that bother me so much? Well, let's say I had 5 brothers and sisters growing up. They were always snatching things out of my hands. And I've worked really hard to have all just my separate things. So when people touch my belongings without my permission, it really ticks me off. And then Betty is an only child, and that's not how her mind works. Like, she's used to being able to touch or do or feel however she wants. And you're thinking, these are minuscule. These are tiny little things. Well, as you do shadow work, and you start to dig through these big pieces of trauma, you start to figure out that these big pieces are constructed of these little bitty pieces. Almost like a Lego castle, right? You got the whole castle, you can tear it apart piece by piece or build it back up. And that's shadow work. So what you're doing is, for instance, I'm going to be giving a lot of real life examples because shadow work is deep. Okay. And it is working on your, like I said, your triggers, the things that bother you. And sometimes we block things out of our heads and we don't think about them for years until we actually start to think about things. And we're like, oh shit, that happened. And that's frequent. That's frequent. So real life example of something big is, in a past relationship I had, their family was incredibly emotionally abusive to me. Well, I really had to start tearing down, like, after the relationship was over, I had to start really thinking about, like, at first I blamed myself, and I was like, I let them do it. Well, I did let them do it. Let's be very clear. But they were emotionally abusing me because they were emotionally abused. They saw it almost as a power piece. Like, they saw it as a way to have control. Now, I've worked through that, and I realized that the reason why I was really uncomfortable with that was because I wasn't raised that way, and it was a complete shock. It was almost like someone just, like, you're just eating a sandwich and someone just slapped you in the face. It was just like, it was a culture shock. It was something I had never dealt with. So I'm just trying to be nice through all of it, and realizing that I'm building up all this trauma inside of me. And I'm like now tearing apart the pieces of each individual encounter I had with them, things that they said, things that happened and how it made me feel. And I'm actually starting to really heal from it and understand I didn't deserve any of it. But also from the higher spiritual perspective, they didn't deserve any of the abuse they received either. So when I want to forgive someone, and this is a piece of shadow work, I start to think back to their inner child and where I think their inner child is and went wrong, or how they may feel, or, like apologizing to the best, kindest part of them, and them apologizing to me would, going through that perspective. And that's really been therapeutic. Now, that's a big example, and there's so many little pieces in there. For instance, like I used to be really, comfortable with myself, and then I slowly became uncomfortable with myself again, and now I'm back to being comfortable with myself. And I realized they made me uncomfortable with myself because they were fat phobic and would say things that would make me feel yucky. And even though I would fight against it, like I'm amazing, eventually that shit sits in your head. You can't keep that kind of company, because eventually those things build up. And that's why affirmations are so important, because affirmations are how we change self-talk. So when I say, oh, have you ever said, oh, I'm stupid? Instead of saying I'm stupid, be like, I made a mistake and I'm going to work on fixing it. I'm great at fixing mistakes. Instead of being like, I'm so ugly, being like, I don't feel my best today, but I'm amazing and I'm beautiful. It's rewording. And so, but it works the opposite. So when you have crappy people around you, or people who are hurtful or mean, or, people who are traumatized and take that trauma out on you, they start to build the self-talk in your, like, not the self-talk, they start to build the talk in your head, and you start to think about these things. So shadow work is all those little pieces. Now, some people can't do shadow work alone. They need to do it with a therapist, a psychologist, a counselor, a spiritual advisor, anything like that. And that's completely normal and fine and beautiful. How it should be. Not how it should be, but that's comfortable and great for you. Some people want to do it alone, and that's great. Both are wonderful. Both are amazing. And shadow work is a lot of what you do in therapy. So it's great. Mental health is really important, and shadow work proves that. Because shadow work is what we do to figure out who we really are. We work through these traumas, through these issues. We work through all of this. And then we figure out what really makes us happy, what really brings us joy. And then we get through the shadow work, and we're able to start truly manifesting our life. When you're younger, you may think, I want to be a fashion designer. Okay, great. You want to be a fashion designer. You don't realize how awful, the fast clothing lines are, to where they use clothing that really they use fabrics that really mess up the environment, and people overcharge, and they're not making any plus size clothing, and da 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 da. And you go through school, but you don't finish because it's too expensive, and all this crazy shit happens, right? This is all a made up scenario. I'm just making, if this reaches you and you like feel it in your soul, I love it. That's why I'm psychic. No, I'm kidding, but kind of, I guess. Anyway, and then, you hit 30 and you're like, it didn't work out the way society set up for me, or the way I envisioned it. But I'm going to start making my own one-of-a-kind pieces. I'm going to start selling them on Etsy and doing what I love, creating pieces that I love, and doing it for me, and doing it for a woman out there that this piece is made for in my heart. It works in every scenario. Now, from that place of, from that Etsy place, you make these individual pieces, and you start to grow. You start to make, 6 figures a year from this business that you started from a place of love. You make one-of-a-kind pieces for people that love them and treasure them. And it's something so much deeper. And it's out of clothing, it's out of fabric that's good for the environment, and it's from your heart. The same thing goes for any line of work, for any line of dreams or anything like that. It has to come from the truest place of who you are. That's how it works the best. And that's where shadow work leads you. Now, some people may be like, well, how do I get started? Great question. So shadow work, the only place I really recommend or like books to read would be psychological self-help books. I know that sounds like wow, but one magazine, like, so that way it's easy to flip through. Nowadays, like books and stuff, it's harder to get through and those types of things. Psychology Today is one of my most spiritual things, and I love it. And I learned, okay, so for instance, they recently did a study where people are happier when they're around plants, even fake shrubbery. They're happier around it. That lets us know that spiritually, I mean, we know that makes a lot of sense, right? Mother Earth, being around the plants heal us, grow us, they make us feel amazing. But that is confirmation, and that is something to really think on. That is a question in itself. That's a shadow work question. How does being in nature make you feel? And let's say it makes you feel scared. Why does being in nature make you feel scared? It can be something as simple as I'm scared to get hurt by an animal, to when I was little, we went camping and I heard weird noises and I don't like it. Or I just don't like that I can't use a restroom. You know what I mean? Like, but really thinking about things that creep you out. And let's say you're like, I love, being outside in nature. Why? And that helps you create gratitude for Mother Earth. So both ways are beautiful. Exploring questions, and that's the basis of shadow work, is exploring questions. Another place I really like is, I heard people say Pinterest witches. Here's the thing. A lot of spiritual practitioners link stuff to Pinterest. It's a great place to get all kinds of resources, big, small. Some people need fast reference. They have all kinds of things, and they have great shadow work prompts on Pinterest. Oh my God. One question is, what is your, like, this is a big one, right? But I'll do a more simpler one in a moment. What's your biggest fear and why? That's huge, right? What's your biggest fear? Mine's, I've worked through that question so many times now to where I would say my biggest fear is that I don't get to help enough people in this life at this time. I'm scared that I won't get to help people feel better, help people wake up, help people see that the world is so beautiful and they deserve to live in it and the splendor, I guess. But I've had a lot of people say death. I've had a lot of people say water, heights. I've had somebody say they don't like clowns, those types of things. And when you start to explore your biggest fear, that's a pretty big to do. Now, let's say that's too scary for you. Ask yourself ask yourself when the last time you were sad and why. Very simple, but it could take you to somewhere. Ponder that. You don't have to journal. A lot of people like to journal. If you like to journal, journal. You also don't have to write out big, long paragraphs. You can do bullet points. I personally like to do bullet points. I'm a fire sign, so I like to keep things short, simple, to the point. I have a friend that's a Cancer. She does not. So we're all very different. And that's spirituality. It's meant to be different. If you click with some of this and some of this you don't, beautiful. That's how it's meant to be. If you click with all of it, beautiful soul. If you click with none of it, I send you with love and light. But shadow work in itself is what you have to do to find your higher self. And people say, I've heard a lot of things on TikTok. I've seen YouTube videos, Instagram stuff where people say you don't have to do shadow work, or, that's a big one. Just you don't have to do shadow work, or shadow work isn't a big deal, or da 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 da. And that is one of the most important things, is you working through your trauma and understanding the meaning and seeing, I don't even say the meaning, sometimes you never get that, but trying to see things from all perspectives helps you forgive, and maybe not forgive someone else, but forgive yourself, because we make mistakes a lot of times. And I'm going to tell you this, delving into this shadow work, you're going to see all the beautiful mess ups that you did. And because you're going to realize you were wrong a lot more than you were right. And I think that's why a lot of people shy away from shadow work, is it shows them who they are, and it scares the shit out of them. And so when I see a spiritual practitioner, a witch, or a pagan, or anybody in the spiritual realm say shadow work isn't needed, I know that they have faced a wall that scares the shit out of them. They hit a wall that scared the shit out of them. And I get it. But at that point, you go see a professional. And I'm a spiritual practitioner. I will have shadow work till the day I die. Anybody who says I've worked through my shadow work, I've worked through my shadow work. Sorry, that ain't how this cookie crumbles. Anybody who acts higher than thou, I know what I'm doing, I'm not willing to listen to anybody else, cookie don't crumble that way. As much as we are the professor, the teacher, we are the student. It's 50-50 all the time. And that's a big part of shadow work. That's something that you learn as you go. You have to be humble, and you have to have gratitude, as much as you have to have self-confidence, as much as you have to love yourself. It's yin and yang. It's the sun and the moon. Everything, people look at things as positive and negative, and it's not that simple, but it can be, I guess. And as humans, we need an explanation for every little piece, every little thing, and that's just not how it's going to happen. And with shadow work, you may come to a point where you've worked on it, and you got to walk away and come back to it, or never come back to it, and just continue working on other shadow work. That's all right. Don't give up on yourself, but you can take breaks from really hard stuff. That's completely normal and fair. Don't feel like you have to hurt yourself or pressure yourself or make yourself feel uncomfortable. Because just because one piece of shadow work is too difficult right now, I promise there are 50 other things around you that you could be working on with yourself. So on my hardest days, when I can't focus on things that really broke me, like emotional abuse or fat phobia or, gay bashing that I've experienced, all the big stuff, I focus on, how can I, what's something I like about myself, and how can I focus on that? So part of shadow work is not just focusing on the bad stuff. It's also focusing on the good stuff. So something I really like about myself is that I try to have a good attitude about most things. So I try to always, I don't want to say there's toxic positivity. It's not like that. Trust me, I get pissed. But I try to focus on silver linings, because it helps me stay afloat, right? Sometimes life can be pretty rough, and focusing on silver linings, it honestly makes my life brighter. So when I figured out that I really, really liked how that made me feel, part of my shadow work was focusing on silver linings. It has helped me be more grateful. So let's say it rains all day long, and I had plans to go out and do something. Outdoors, beautiful. But me and my partner end up just watching TV, watching a show that we love, and snacking and cuddling and playing games. No, we didn't get to do the big adventure outside, but we got to spend some really great time together and reconnect, and we lived in the moment. That's a beautiful silver lining. And even in some of the worst of times, like some of the emotional abuse I've dealt with, as much as obviously I didn't want to go through it, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, or, part of the silver lining. Not that it's like, oh, I don't want you to think silver linings are like, oh, it makes it okay. That's not true. A silver lining is just something good that came from something terrible. And a silver lining that came from that for me was I finally love myself enough to know I will never let it happen again. Like, I have worked so hard on who I am, and I've worked so hard on focusing on who I want to be and the life I want, that I don't have room for people like that. And it makes it a lot easier to deal with them, and it makes it a lot easier to not let them hurt me. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please like, subscribe, go follow me over at TikTok. And I love you guys. Sign up for a reading with me. I love you. If you have any questions, below. Please, please, please.